Men didn't build civilization for themselves.
No, men don't need civilization for just men.
No.
Men need civilization for women.
Mattel's going to make bank off of this thing.
There are some unexpected concessions that going into it, you feel, oh, they're going to make this point. And it's just going to be this woke talking point. And then they examine the other side of it. And you're like, what?
But if you actually watch the movie, you'll find that that's not really what the movie says, even though they explicitly say that. There's also this implication that matriarchy isn't really great. It's not great for one gender to rule over the other, no matter which way you frame it. So the question is, Barbie, brilliant or brainless? Hello, welcome to the Pop Culture Contrarian podcast with Thomas, Sterling, and Andrew once again. He was missing last week. He's back now.
I am well.
We're all happy for that. So today, on the weekend these movies came out, we talked about Oppenheimer, but now we have seen Barbie, and we're gonna tell you what we think about Barbie. So we all know Barbie, we all love Barbie, or at least we know people who love Barbie, because we either played with Barbie growing up, although we're all guys, so maybe not, or we knew people who played with Barbie growing up. So we're all quite familiar with Barbie, I believe.
It's kind of an iconic American toy.
Right. So I think the movie really pays homage to that. And I think it is clearly the movie is made by people who enjoy playing with the Barbie toy.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I think further, they knew who their audience was. They knew who the people who like Barbie are. And they made a movie that the people who like Barbie would like.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate, even as someone who's not a Barbie fan, because I like to see fans treated with respect. I appreciate it. So.
And Mattel's going to get a boon out of this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be Barbie 2.0.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So not only is it one of the top movies this year, probably, but also I wonder how many Barbies get sold.
Oh, yeah.
Even though this
so
is
many Barbies.
Really not a kid's movie.
No, but I bet they'll start releasing like discontinued Barbies again, because there's a lot of those in the movie.
Oh, yeah. The whole nostalgia thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Like limited release, discontinued Barbies.
That'd be fascinating.
So as a collector, are you going to buy some?
Oh, yeah. You know me. I got to have my Barbies. No, I'm not a general collector. I have things I collect.
Well, I guess this will be a spoiler alert.
Oh, yes. Spoiler alert for the entire movie. We're not going to dive into every detail, but we're not going to shy away from any major plot points either.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely.
Right. So this is your chance. Go away if you don't want to have Barbie spoiled for you. If you're a heterosexual male, you're still here. So here we go. All right. So let's start with the kind of controversy about it. So Thomas, can you take us through that a little bit?
Yeah. It's a movie that has a lot of detractors and a lot of fans.
Right.
And it's not based upon political views either, which is kind of unusual.
Right. You've got people on the right who love it and people on the right who despise it.
Right.
And then we've got at least a few leftists who don't like it. And then it seems like most leftists do like it. But yeah.
It seems to me that going into it, most people on the right kind of expected it to be something. Mm-hmm. And for some people, I think either it was that thing or they just decided it was that thing.
I think there's some of that for sure.
And then there were people, like I'm one of those people, who was really shocked at certain elements of it being not what I expected.
Right. Like I have some friends who went to go see it and they said it wasn't even, like there were no laugh lines in the whole movie, which boggled my mind because I was laughing the whole movie.
I thought there were plenty of laugh lines.
Right. I thought it was a very funny movie.
Yeah. It's genuinely funny.
So the controversy mostly revolves around, there's one specific thing, and then in general, there's Ben Shapiro has famously come out and said it's the wokest movie ever. Not quite sure I understand his argument there, but we'll go through it a little bit. And then the like major part that is, I think, controversial is that one of the actors who plays a Barbie in the movie, Dr. Barbie, is played by a man who is confused and thinks he's a woman. And they go along with that in the movie. And so if you're aware of that when you're watching it, I found it quite disturbing every time that man was on screen.
I would say if you didn't know, you might not have picked up on it.
You might not. You might just think that's a weird looking kind of ugly woman, maybe. But if you're tuned into the whole transgender stuff, I think you'd know, even without being told.
Do you think that element alone was what kind of triggered or prepped conservatives to kind of be ready to not like the movie?
Yes, I think so. Definitely. Going into it knowing, okay, they specifically cast a trans whatever.
Right. And it
for
wasn't
this role.
I absolutely agree. You're right. But it wasn't because, they did a casting call and this trans person showed up and they cast them because they were the best for the role. That's not what happened. This person wrote in to Greta Gerwig, the director, and said, "Hey, can I represent trans women in your Barbie movie?" And Greta Gerwig was like, "Sure."
Yeah.
And so going into this, I was always expecting to at least be interested in the Barbie movie for months before it came out. Then I heard about that and my expectations sank. But yeah, I think that is what primed conservatives to dislike it. So, Andrew, can you briefly just kind of outline the main story?
Well, essentially, it starts out in this fictional Barbie land,
Right.
where everything is perfect and every single day is fun and happy, and the Barbies are in charge of everything.
Right. And there's a narrator who's talking about how a lot of this is exactly the same way you play with a toy. Barbies don't walk downstairs, they float because you just pick them up and move them.
I will say the very beginning, actually, I nearly forgot, was an homage to 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Right. Yeah. With a bunch of little girls playing with baby dolls, and then Barbie shows up.
Yeah, and they destroy their baby dolls, which was a strange kind of thing.
It was strange, but I thought it was just funny because it was clearly, a reference to 2001 where the monolith shows up and then the apes, I think they make fire. Is that right? Or do they kill a predator?
They kill. Well, I think they kill one another.
Right.
Don't they?
Oh, they kill one another. Okay. In the book, I think they kill a tiger, and that's what happens in the book. So I haven't seen them.
But it's the original 1950 or whatever Barbie with the black and white dress and the 50s sunglasses and all that stuff.
Did you know that ahead of time?
Did I know
that was what her outfit was?
Yeah, because when I was a kid, I saw a museum display that had the history of Barbies and all that stuff. It was in a children's museum, and I just remembered it from then.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of stuff that I missed because I just was unfamiliar with. I know general Barbie, but all the specifics, I had no clue.
Yeah, well,
I recognized it because, and this is a little bit of an anecdote, so bear with me. My family every Christmas watches White Christmas. And in that movie, there is one actress who has the Barbie doll figure. And she's like the only person you've ever seen in real life with the Barbie doll figure. It's one of the sisters in the movie, if you've seen the movie. Yeah. And so every time that scene comes on with my family, my mom starts talking about that and Barbie dolls. And so this past year, she was talking about the classic outfit. And so just purely through happenstance, I recognized that was the original Barbie outfit because my mom had talked to me about it this past Christmas.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, the 2001 Space Odyssey homage. And then, as I briefly mentioned before, the whole Barbie world is perfect. Barbies are in control of everything. Kens are just the dopey sidekicks that really have no rights. They're second-class citizens, essentially.
Right. The narrator straight up says, Barbie lives her best life every day. Ken only has a good day if Barbie looks at him.
Correct. And then, to briefly recount it, follows Barbie as she has to go to the real world, which is Los Angeles, and it is framed as being the opposite of Barbie Land, and in some ways it is, in some ways I would say it's not.
Right.
And then the journey of her figuring out what life is about, what being a human or being a Barbie is about, etc. And there are many, many themes, many of which we'll touch on. And it leads into being an unexpected think piece.
Right. I think that's absolutely right.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, so she has to find the girl who's playing with her because there's some meta commentary on the nature of Barbie dolls, the toy.
Yeah, and their connection to the women or girls who are playing with them in the real world.
And then, of course, she ends up back in Barbie Land and things go wrong and she has to fix it. And then she has a resolution at the end of the movie. And we'll get to that when we get to that part. All right, so that's a brief summary of how the movie is oriented. So on the topic of all the themes, because it is, as you said, it's a think piece. There's lots and lots of themes in this movie and things that the movie is clearly trying to say. My initial reaction on exiting the theater was that the messaging and the themes in the movie were confused. It seemed to me that the director and the writers just didn't quite know what they wanted to say here. Do you have any opinions on that?
There is a feel of confusion, but I think that was more intentional than just a lack of knowing what she wanted to say. I think she knew what she wanted to say. So I think it was intentional to a degree. I don't think it was probably as confusing as maybe you felt it was.
Well, not necessarily confused in that, like, I got what they were saying, but it was just a lot of the things they were saying seemed to contradict one another.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Whether it was intentional or not, I think probably like Thomas, it was intentional that in the end, a commentary on life is confusing and we don't know the way.
Right.
Kind of this whole, no one really knows the truth.
So to kind of expand on what I mean about confused messaging, they straight up say lines about feminism and patriarchy and how men oppress women, and lines like, hey, can a Ken be a Supreme Court justice? And the female Barbie president says, oh, no, I can't do that. Maybe a circuit court judge or something like that. And then the narrator says, maybe if they work really hard, they can one day have as much equal rights in Barbie land as women have in the real world. And so there's that kind of thing, and you might roll your eyes at that, and I think that's appropriate. But if you actually watch the movie, you'll find that that's not really what the movie says, even though they explicitly say that. There's also this implication that matriarchy isn't really great. It's not great for one gender to rule over the other, no matter which way you frame it. And also that, you know, the Barbies and the Kens aren't enemies. And so there's a lot of, it just kind of felt confusing to me.
I think when you think of what is happening here, it's your classic hero's journey kind of movie piece
for Barbie. We should clarify this. There's lots of characters named Barbie in the movie, and there's lots of characters named Ken in the movie, but they all have like a little designation. So the main character played by Margot Robbie is stereotypical Barbie, and the main Ken played by Ryan Gosling is Beach Ken. All right, keep going.
So it also has an element of kind of development from childhood to adulthood. Barbie Land represents, in one sense, the idealized view of a little girl's view of kind of the perfect world, right? And what precipitates what causes the journey to happen effectively is when Barbie suddenly has this thought of death that kind of wrecks the perfect world of Barbie Land. And they say it causes this tear or something in the
a tear in the space-time continuum or
something along those lines.
The scene in the movie when it happens is literally they're all dancing, it's choreographed, it's incredibly well done dancing. And then stereotypical Barbie says, do y'all ever think about death? And it's record scratch, the entire party stops, everyone stops moving.
Right.
And then she, makes up something like, oh, I just mean this song has me scared to death, something like that, where it changes what she said, and then everyone starts partying again.
Anyway, it sends her on the journey to she finds out from Weird Barbie, I think it is, that the reason this has happened is something to do with her girl who plays with her, and there's something going on there, so she has to travel to real world and then help her girl figure out whatever the problem is there, and then she explains
the problem as the real girl and the Barbie doll are being merged in a way that they shouldn't be. The Barbie doll is supposed to be Barbie, and the girl is supposed to be the girl.
Right. And so that kind of sets you on this journey, and then she goes into the real world and the real world.
Right, and it should be in quotation marks.
Right.
And it's still just like a fake example of reality.
It's Los Angeles.
While you're watching the movie, even though it is set in Los Angeles, you're not supposed to think this is really what Los Angeles is like. And there's some hints to that. There's a scene where they're in the boardroom and you're looking out the window behind them and you can see the Hollywood sign, and then you can see giant snow-covered mountains. And it's like, that's not the real geography. So clearly we're being told something about that.
Yeah, but that's also happening at Mattel headquarters, which is supposed to be like the extreme example of the patriarchy. So you could say almost in between there was the most real-ish of the real world, right?
So I actually have a theory about why the real world doesn't feel real. And my theory is that the whole movie is intended to kind of be the world as a girl playing with a Barbie might imagine it. So Barbie Land is the world that the Barbie doll makes her imagine. And then the real world is just what she imagines about whatever her parents go and do in their daily life. And so that's why it seems kind of weird and slapstick and not realistic, because it's, an 8-year-old girl imagining what the real world's like.
Right. And then when she discovers that it's not the girl, who's it? A tween?
It's not the tween
teenager
named Sasha who's playing with the Barbie doll.
It's her mother.
It's actually her mother. And her mother is effectively kind of going through what you would say is a midlife crisis.
I think that's the best term.
Anyway, mother has evidently had these dreams that have never really panned out, and she's working basically as a secretary at Mattel headquarters.
Right.
And as she works as a secretary, she's been drawing these Barbie ideas that triggered the whole thing.
Right. For new specific Barbies that would be boxed separately, and they have funny names. What are they?
Like Depression Barbie.
Cellulite Barbie.
Cellulite Barbie. And I think the other one is, there's, I think 3, but I can't remember what the third one is. But the second one is Irrepressible Thoughts of Death Barbie, which is such a winner of a name. I want to buy that toy.
They're essentially the struggles and fears of a middle-aged woman.
Right. Kind of coming to grips with her dreams aren't going to pan out and refocusing her dreams on more realistic things. And we should say that the mother's name is Gloria, and she's played by America Ferrera.
And so then through that experience, they have to, what happens is then Gloria recognizes Barbie as her, I guess, doll back when she was a girl.
Yeah.
And so then Gloria and her daughter, who is Sasha, help Barbie. They go back to Barbie Land.
Mm-hmm. After a whole scene where the CEO of Mattel, played by Will Ferrell, chases Barbie around trying to force her back into the box that she came in.
Right. Go back to Barbie Land to save Barbie Land. But prior to this, Ken, who had come along for the ride, as it were.
Right. He literally tagged along.
He literally tags along. Well, he's discovered he's discovered the patriarchy at this point.
Right.
And he decides it's a great thing, so he's going to take it back and remake Barbie Land in the image of the patriarchy that he's discovered.
As he understands it. And it should be made absolutely clear that Ken, specifically Beach Ken, is an idiot. He's just a big old dummy. So,
well, all the Kens are.
All the Kens are. He has no idea what patriarchy really means.
He thinks it is horses.
He thinks it has something to do with horses. But there's also this element where when he's first learning about the patriarchy, you see him holding a big stack of books he found with ridiculous patriarchy-based names like, How to Rule the World as a Man or something like that. It's just really funny titles. He's just standing at the school where they're looking for the girl who's playing with the Barbie, and this mother comes up and asks Beach Ken, do you have the time? And it's just literally, look at your watch, tell me what time it is. But his reaction is, whoa, you actually respect me enough to ask me the time. And that's a whole new experience for him. So life for Ken has not been great up till now.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And so then the challenge when Barbie and Gloria and Sasha get back to Barbie Land is to save Barbie Land from the patriarchy.
Because Ken got there first.
Because Ken's got there, and he's convinced all the Kens to take over, and they're kind of ruling Barbie Land and remaking it.
And they've brainwashed all the other Barbies into essentially Stepford wives.
Right. And so then they scheme and figure out a plot to get the Kens to eventually fight against themselves. And then they're able to save Barbie Land, as it were.
And he has that line, which is that there's no Ken without Barbie. It's Barbie and Ken.
And so then there's this whole kind of scene of, is there a song associated? Ken is enough.
Ken is enough is the song when they're battling each other.
Okay. And so anyway, he comes to this, I guess, realization that in and of himself, he's enough just as he is. He doesn't have to be connected with Barbie.
His journey is kind of one of self-fulfillment.
And I would say that it was at this point in the movie where I think the messages start to get really muddled. Like, what is Gerwig trying to say about feminism or about the patriarchy, all these things?
The battle of the sexes.
The battle of the sexes, all this stuff. It's where I would say I most saw her actual feminism coming out, which is this kind of like men and women are equal. We're different. So she embraces kind of the older, we're different. We have these different maybe interests and roles, but we're equal, but we don't have to be connected to one another. And I thought that was a little bit just kind of the messaging kind of got confusing there.
Yeah, it's like men and women are friends, or rather, they're not enemies, but they don't necessarily need each other.
Right. They're not partners, which is the Christian view, is that men and women are partners, not every man and every woman, but a man and a woman come together to form a partnership, and we call it a marriage.
Yeah. It's the ultimate
in a family
idea of individualism in the film.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me at that point of almost like a female version of Rambo.
Fascinating.
You know?
Explain that.
Well, Rambo, or the Rambo type character, or maybe you could even use James Bond as another example. It's this ultimate masculine male who doesn't need anybody else. He's in and of himself, he's fully satisfied. The women that are around him that he may interact with are just kind of like accessories for him.
Oh, you mean the whole movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that point I think makes it the most clear that Barbie doesn't need Ken.
Right.
Right. And so that's where I was thinking, okay, now as I see this whole movie happening, it is the hero's journey through Barbie's eyes, but it's also kind of a little bit of a remaking or a refocusing of the feminist hero's journey, in a sense. It's realizing at the beginning of the film, we rejected the whole smashing of the baby dolls, was a rejection of the old stereotype that the feminists railed against, which was too limiting. It was too narrow, is that women basically exist to be mothers and homemakers.
Right. It's the rejection of being barefoot in the kitchen.
But it's like Gerwig's coming back around saying, yeah, we've got all these things in Barbie Land where we're like president, lawyer, doctor, all these things, Supreme Court. But
even
what's missing?
Construction worker.
Right.
What's missing is Barbie the mother. And it's almost like that element that feminism is fought to not necessarily entirely reject, but has devalued because career is more important. And I think she's kind of bringing it and saying, wait a second, no, it actually matters. Being a mother or seeking to be a mother is a significant factor about being a woman and unique to being a woman. And that is what I think you see her character come to embrace, because she wants to become not just Barbie, but she wants to become human woman.
Right. She decides at the end of the movie, Margot Robbie, stereotypical Barbie, decides to become human. She's given that option.
I think on that note, there's two interesting angles that particularly comment on that. And the first initially is the pregnant Barbie and how they kind of say, oh, but she was weird and discontinued. Midge. Okay. And they discontinued, Mattel discontinues Midge.
And that's all in like the 5 seconds that Midge is on the screen.
Yeah, that's it. Just because it's like, oh, that was weird or whatever.
The narrator says, oh, and there's Midge, the pregnant Barbie, but that's weird, so we're not going to talk about her. She's not going to be in this movie. And then that's pretty much it.
Well, there is the second scene where Will Ferrell is in Barbie Land and he sees Midge and he's like, ugh.
I thought we discontinued.
Yeah.
So that was the only other kind of.
But then at the end of the movie, and I don't know do we want to go ahead and mention that?
Yeah, go ahead.
When she becomes human, she's in this scene where you think that she might be going to like this big job interview, but then she's going to see her gynecologist.
Right. And she's thrilled.
Because
they
now
say
she's
several times in the movie, we don't have genitalia, you know.
Yeah, that's kind of a major point throughout that the Barbies don't have anything. They're not human.
Right. There's a few jokes about that. There's one where Ken at the beginning of the movie is hitting on Barbie, as he always does. And I'll expand on that in a second. But he's hitting on her, and he says, so I was thinking maybe I should stay over at your house tonight. And Barbie says, to do what? And he's like, I don't know. She's like, why? Because we're boyfriend-girlfriend. Just that's the only reason I know, because they don't have anything to do at night.
Yeah. Well, when she becomes a woman, it's like, okay, this is what a real woman is. And also it implies potentially a track towards motherhood.
Right. And let's not devalue that point. This movie unequivocally makes a connection between being a woman and having a vagina.
Yeah. Very interesting in this day and age.
And if we want to bring it around to one of the points that offended so many people before they even saw this, which is what the transgender actor in here, the man acting as a Barbie.
Yeah.
You could almost say that maybe Gerwig's being a little bit subversive here and saying, well, in Barbie Land, sure, anybody, because Barbie Land's not real, can act to be a Barbie, but the real woman
has a vagina
and has a uterus. This is I think she kind of makes that case pretty
right. So maybe that's why some of it seems confused, because she's what people who don't like this kind of thing would call a TERF, a trans exclusive radical feminist, which is she's still a feminist, but she also believes that women are women and men are men. So maybe that's what's going on. I'm not calling Greta Gerwig a TERF, but maybe that's what's going on there.
Like I said, it would be subversive if it is, because it's not obvious.
So I do want to get back to the part about the whole movie. Ken is hitting on Barbie, and Barbie's just not that interested. She's like, oh, Ken, you're here too. There's a really funny scene where he's talking to her. Beach Ken is talking to stereotypical Barbie about some other Ken. And he says, I can't, do what that other Ken does, which I think is cool backflips. And Barbie's response is like heated, and she's like, Ken is not a cool person. And it's just funny because they both know she's talking about that other one, but what he doesn't know is she's talking about all the Kens, I think.
Yeah.
And it's an amusing line. Yeah, and there's every scene that Ryan Gosling is on screen is funny. If you're not laughing when Ryan Gosling is on screen, you don't have a funny bone.
Yeah.
And I would have to say the casting in this movie is great.
Yeah.
I think it's a well thought out movie. It is a kind of a unique movie. Like I said, it reminds me of more of a stereotypical like male genre, but it's completely flipped and it's female focused. Where it's
female focused and men are accessories. And that's I'm going to build on what I'm trying to get to a point here, which is it seems self-centered. And, self-centered isn't always bad. There's some times where it's appropriate to be self-centered. But the whole movie, the whole view of women and femininity seems self-centered. Even motherhood kind of seems not self-centered, because there's that, love for the mother and the child. But there's no implication at all that men can be fathers. There's not even anything in the movie that implies that men can be a parental figure, really.
Yeah, even the only father that's present appears to be a stepfather.
Or at least just not very engaged.
He's barely involved in any way.
The first time he's mentioned, Gloria and Sasha are going to Barbie Land, and they're like, should we go back for Dad? And they're like, nah, he'll be fine. And it cuts away to him trying to learn Spanish on Duolingo and not doing it very well.
Well, and I think there's also the lack of a kind of focus on family. I thought was kind of fascinating.
There is an examination of mother-daughter dynamic.
Right, but not
family.
Not like your full cohesive traditional family.
Right. And, as a guy, all of us are men. This movie was not made for us, and that's fine. We still enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's not that guys just don't like movies where women are the leads, because we all found this movie quite enjoyable, I think.
Well, I think if it was a movie just like, if it was a kid's movie, it would be like, yeah, my daughter might like this one day. But it was kind of, in some ways, like capturing the cultural zeitgeist and commenting on things that are ever present in our society now and questions that we have about society.
It's very much an adult movie.
It's very much, it's rated PG-13. It's meant for adults. There is an extended joke at the beginning that Thomas and I were busting out laughing about, but it's quite a rude joke. And so the main Ken is called Beach Ken. And so the joke is around the phrase, are we going to have a beach off? Two of the Kens having a beach off, meaning a fight. But of course, it sounds like something else. And so there's a whole scene where for like 30 seconds there, everyone's just saying, beach off, beach off. No one's going to beach anyone off. It's very funny. But it's not meant for children. Yeah. They won't get it. And if they do, that's a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few of these kind of sexual innuendo jokes and stuff. It's not like if a kid goes to it that they're going to be seeing stuff or hearing stuff that isn't necessarily
right.
It's just going to be over their heads mostly.
Yeah, I agree with that. So it's not made for kids. And I will, just while we're on that topic, I'll say, I think we said it's not made for us because we're men. I think the audiences for this movie are, in order, women, all women from every age, 9 to 99, then adults, and that includes men, and then little girls, which is included in women, I know, anyhow. And then the only group that I think has no interest in this movie whatsoever is going to be little boys. I don't think any little boy from 6 to 16, maybe even to 26, is going to have any interest in this.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, this is definitely a nostalgia film for women about, their childhood. And it's creative. It's very creative.
It's a very creative movie. And I was struck while I was watching it that, Americans, and this is a very American movie because it's talking about Barbie, which is a very American toy. Americans really have chosen an art form, and we've chosen movies. And you know what? Even when we make a bad movie, we're still good at making movies. And this one's not a bad movie. And you can just tell that everyone involved in this, or most of the people involved in this, are just good at making movies.
Mm-hmm. It was practically art in some ways.
I think it was art. I think that's right. And that's why I liked it, because mostly these days when I go to a movie, what I'm worried about is woke or not. Mm-hmm. And I think woke, almost by definition, cannot produce art. And so if it is art, it must not be woke.
Yeah.
And so that's part of why I found it kind of confused, because it does kind of pretend to be woke. But I don't think it is.
It hits on woke elements for sure. There is one of the big woke tenets is what? Inclusivity.
Yeah, right.
And so it does hit at that.
You've got all different kinds of Barbie in terms of race and height and different kinds of beauty, and then you have one Barbie who's fat, and you've got obviously the transgender Dr. Barbie. I will mention though that all the Kens, every single one of them is ripped and shredded and muscular.
Yeah,
not any out of shape Kens.
Interesting double standard.
But they are all different races.
All different races. There's a prominent Asian, black, and white Ken.
Mm-hmm. And there is Alan.
And there's Alan. This is this other guy played by Michael Cera, who was a toy made at one point.
It was a real doll they did.
A real doll called Alan, Ken's friend.
He did a great job. It was hilarious.
He was very funny. I was struck by the fact that Alan, who is, even though none of the Kens are terribly masculine, Alan is the least masculine of the men in Barbie Land, I think. And when all the Kens institute what they call Kendom, which is their patriarchy thing, where they're not quite sure if it's patriarchy or if it's horses or what exactly it is. And it's just funny because they don't understand the concept really, except that men get to be in charge, which they're excited about because they've been not in charge their entire existence. All the Kens are having a great time. They've all got their Barbies wrapped around their fingers. They're all playing. They're all having bro nights and stuff. And then Alan is miserable. And I was just kind of struck by that fact that the most effeminate man in the movie is the one who doesn't like the patriarchy in Barbie Land. We talked about how the real world isn't the real world, and I mentioned a couple of points, but do you want to just kind of build on that for a minute?
Yeah, I think the real world, so namely in like Mattel, when you're on the top floor and you're looking over the Hollywood sign and then there's white capped mountains behind it. Right.
Well, I'll say this is another that's kind of a humorous moment. Right when Barbie and Ken first get to LA, the real world, Barbie is very disturbed by all the people looking at her because she's dressed in a really gaudy outfit. And then she's like, oh, I really need some feminine energy. I'm going to walk over to this construction zone because that's where you get feminine energy in Barbie Land. And she walks up and it's a bunch of stereotypical construction worker guys. And every single one of them catcalls her over one another. They're all catcalling at exactly the same time, which is like, that's not even sort of realistic.
Not really a thing.
And especially not in LA. Are you telling me on the beach in LA that you've got construction workers catcalling the girls? I don't think so.
No. Patriarchy.
Right.
Stereotype.
And there's some other funny moments as Ken tries to learn about the patriarchy. He goes to this business district, which is apparently the home of the patriarchy. And he's talking to people, and he's talking to this one guy, and he's like, he goes and tries to get all these different jobs. He's like, I want to be a surgeon. And the doctor he's talking to is a woman. And she's like, you're not trained. I can't let you do that. And he's like, it's okay. I'm a man. And she's like, I still can't let you do that. And he goes to all these things. Then he tries to get a job at a business. And the businessman is like, oh, sorry. You actually have to have like an MBA or a PhD or something. And he's like, but I'm a man. And he's like, yeah, that's not enough. And he's like, and Ken says, I don't think you guys do patriarchy right. And the person responds, oh no, we're pretty good at it. We're just secret.
We just keep it quiet.
But I think the whole time you're not really thinking this seems like the real world. There's the whole slapstick routine where all the Mattel employees are chasing Barbie. And it's just totally silly. They're running in straight lines as she's running by them, just like Scooby-Doo chases kind of thing.
Everything inside the Mattel building feels like just a fantasy world.
Well, right. It's as fantasy as Barbie Land was. Mm-hmm. I think that one of the interesting points in the movie is when Barbie meets Ruth Handler, the creator of Barbie.
Right.
And during an exchange, she kind of explains to Barbie, effectively, Barbie Land isn't real, and the patriarchy isn't real. And I thought, I can't remember exactly the line she used.
Oh, I recall. Mm-hmm. It was, these things aren't real. They are ideas that we create in order to cope with the world.
Right. So it kind of fleshing that out from the earlier parts of the story, the whole time when you meet Gloria, who's the mother of the daughter, the person who's actually been playing with the Barbie dolls, she's complaining about the real world and how hard it is to be in the real world. And Barbie has been struck with this, how hard it is for her to be in the real world, because it's nothing like what she expected. And so she's asking Gloria about this, and Gloria is like listing how impossible it is to be a woman in the real world and all these things like, you got to be a boss babe, but you also have to not be mean to people. You have to, all these things. And it's kind of the feminist view of what a woman is that she's complaining about.
You can't win for losing, basically.
Right. You have to try to be feminine and be masculine at the same time. And it turns out that's hard to do.
Yeah.
But then there's a whole section of the movie where they're deprogramming the brainwashed Barbies back in Barbie Land. And Gloria has to sit down with every one of them and give them essentially a feminist lecture on why being a woman is tough. And that's what snaps them out of it. And then at the end of the movie, you meet her before this, but at the end of the movie, Ruth Handler and Barbie are talking kind of as the resolution. Ruth Handler comes in as like Gandalf to solve all the problems.
Yeah.
And then she has this discussion with Barbie.
Yeah. And I think it's at that point where I see most the point that Gerwig was trying to get at, which is these stereotypes that we've created, Barbie Land, like this perfect world for women or something, or the patriarchy, which exists solely to oppress women. Mm-hmm. They're both lies.
Right. And right before that, she basically says life's tough for every human.
Everybody
If you're a human, life is tough. So we make up these fictions like Barbie and like patriarchy. And there are actually different ways to take it, but expand on that.
Yeah. Well, I just think that was interesting. It was interesting because it kind of cuts against, this is where I felt like it cut against the woke grain. Because what we're seeing with kind of this woke worldview is you're not allowed to question this dogma that's being preached. This is how it is. And here, Gerwig, who I think is definitely giving a feminist message, however, at the same time, she's saying this extreme version of feminism that says you have to be all these things is actually, it's not accurate. It's not true. And there's also, I think, one of the things that we see talked about often, just I think in our culture today, is the problem of putting off women, especially embracing kind of this feminist message of find your career, get your career started, and then think about making a family.
Right.
Is what we're seeing is a lot of women suddenly running into this like ticking clock and recognizing there's a huge piece of me that's not being fulfilled. The suit nature of who I am that's not being fulfilled.
Right. Barbie in this movie is stereotypical. Barbie is essentially the perfect feminist woman.
Right.
Even though she herself isn't really feminist, just because she was she lives in Barbie land. But yeah, she's this perfect feminist woman, and that's a woman who isn't a mother. And she decides, I don't want that. I want the real world and all the things that come with actually being a woman. And that includes motherhood. I don't think that's necessarily the primary focus, but it's definitely one of the things she's interested in.
Well, I think for this, because it has been so kind of, for lack of a better term, maligned for such a long time, and now it's kind of saying, wait a second, did we almost, in a sense, do we cut off our nose to spite the face? It's just kind of like, wait, maybe we should recognize that what we've been doing, it actually isn't perfect. Barbie Land isn't perfect.
Right. And they do decide to start letting the Kens have a bit more agency in Barbie Land and be more realistic as people.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go back to something earlier that I realized just now. I never actually got to the point, which is that the whole story, Ken is bothering Barbie basically with his attention. He's just being so into her that it's annoying. And then by the end of the movie, of course, he decides that he's enough by himself. And Barbie does apologize for how kind of callously she's treated him. But she basically says, you have to figure out what your life is without me because I'm not interested in you. And his reaction is, oh, okay, I guess I can really just be me by myself. And I thought that was kind of a woman's fantasy reaction for a man who's doing that, because women do put up with men who are annoyingly into them. And it would certainly be great if you could just explain, I'm not into you, you have to figure out how to be by yourself, and then they leave you alone. And so that's what Ken does. And I think it's meant to show that he's, even though she's not interested in him, he's still kind of the perfect man in the feminist sense.
Yeah, because he can just go and do his own thing and leave her alone.
Are there any other funny scenes, interesting scenes that just kind of stuck with you that we haven't talked about yet?
I noticed there was some commentary when Barbie first meets the daughter. I don't recall her name.
Sasha.
Yeah, so in the scene where Barbie meets Sasha in the library at her school.
Cafeteria, I think.
Yeah, it was the cafeteria. And essentially gets called a fascist and a capitalist and all these things that are sort of the buzzwords for some young people today. It's some not young people, but Barbie was like, I had no idea I was all these things. That was kind of an interesting play almost on the whole, you can be something without knowing that you're that thing.
Right. It's kind of her waking up to her privilege.
Yeah. So I was like, I see what you're doing there.
Yeah. In that scene, what I was struck by, I noticed all those things as well, but what I was struck by was even then, because that really tears Barbie apart, because she thought this was the girl who's playing with her and the person she needs to go find in the real world to solve her problems. And then she's just super duper mean to her. And even then, what I was struck by was that Barbie is ridiculously polite. Like, she starts crying and she's like, excuse me, I have to go over there. So, she politely excuses herself so she can go cry. And I don't know why. It just struck me that Barbie, who's supposed to be this stereotypical Barbie, kind of as we've said, the perfect woman, is actually someone who's polite. Because a lot of feminists today seem to think that's not a virtue for a feminist. And I think politeness is a virtue for everybody.
Yes. What about you, Thomas? Any notable scenes you can think of that were...
Yeah, I don't have it. I mean, there's a lot of fun jokes in it. There's even the one real big musical number, which had to do with the Kens fighting.
Right. So
it's actually pretty enjoyable.
So I do want to talk about that scene a bit, though, because the Barbies deprogram each other, and then they, use their feminine wiles to turn all the Kens against each other and convince them that all the other Kens are trying to steal their Barbie. And so the Kens, divvy up into two teams, and then they have this battle, but there's no weapons in Barbie Land, so they're fighting with, like
tennis rackets
and
inflatable toys
and little bow and arrow toys, and just
balls and bats.
Silly, but there's this fun, silly battle scene, and then it kind of breaks into this song where Ken, played by Ryan Gosling and Simu Lee, start singing about being Ken and just their experience as being Ken and how it's not that great because the line is, anywhere else I'd be a 10, but here I'm just Ken. And the part that I still don't quite know what to make of, and that's, I think, the whole point we've been trying to make, that this movie is a think piece. It's complicated. I think you need to watch it more than once to really understand it, and we haven't yet. But after the Barbies have turned the Kens on each other, and that was kind of the whole point, was to make them fight each other, they don't actually fight each other, really. They fight for a minute, and then they break out in a song, and then they shake hands and dance together, and then they're friends, and they're all on the same side again by the end of that. And maybe that's just a more feminine solution to a conflict between two groups. And maybe that's all that's meant to be, is just, this is how, a little girl playing with her Ken dolls would resolve the situation, is they start dancing and singing together. But maybe there's some message there that I haven't quite unpacked. I don't quite know what to make of that scene, about that resolution specifically.
Yeah, it seems like in the real world, there would be a group that would win and crush the other group.
Right. That's, if it was guys doing that,
what would happen?
One of the Kens would win and their group would beat the other Kens, and then all those Kens Barbies would belong to the other Kens, basically.
Yeah, it's kind of multi-millennium old story.
Right. One of the first stories is about going and taking the Vestal Virgins from this other group because they don't have enough women. Yeah.
Well, the Barbies actually won that fight.
Right, because the whole point was to get the Kens fighting, right, so they can change the laws back and the Barbies being.
What I did find was interesting was which is kind of a stereotype, but the women go to their biggest strength, which is the ability to manipulate the men.
Right.
That is an interesting observation.
Yeah, so it is an interesting observation, and I think that's genuinely true. The argument that women haven't had power throughout history has never been compelling to me, partially because the women I'm related to have never been pushovers.
Yeah.
So there's that. And my sister is maybe the most go-getting person I know. But also, women's power does not show up the same way as men's power. Women's power is deliberately kind of under the covers. It's kind of behind closed doors where you don't know that it's even happened.
Women drive men to do everything.
Right. I mean, there's Shakespeare has this whole idea in Macbeth, with Lady Macbeth being kind of the driving force behind killing King Duncan, right? Mm-hmm. It's a tale as old as time, the woman whispering in the man's ear to get him to do what she wants. It's in the Bible, with Herod's wife demanding John the Baptist's head.
Men built civilization not for themselves.
He had taken her as his wife.
Right. That was what John the Baptist was angry about.
Yeah.
Men didn't build civilization for themselves.
No. Men don't need civilization for just men. No. Men need civilization for women.
Mm-hmm. That's what Kendom would have looked like, right?
Yeah.
It's just,
I guess. Yeah.
We should kind of touch on what Kendom was like a little bit. Yeah. One, Ken he's just so dumb that he doesn't really notice he's combining ideas and repeating himself. And so he names his house, because before it was Barbie's dream house, but then he takes over and then it's Ken's awesome mega casa house dojo. Yeah. And it's all those are the same word. You don't have to say all those things. But then because he's doing all this stuff, in the real world, that toy, Ken's awesome mega house dojo casa, starts selling, hotcakes. And so there's just some funny stuff about that.
So here's the question. Is that toy available now, being sold by Mattel in
that is a good question. I wish I knew exactly how he says it, because I can't look that up. I mean,
I hope so.
Ken's Casa House Dojo, I guess.
There's no way they're actually going to sell it, but gosh, that'd be hilarious.
They
might. Mattel's going to make bank off of this thing.
Mattel, make all of the really weird Kendom things, and
so
buy them.
You can get the Ken with the fur outfit he's wearing in the movie at his Mojo Dojo Casa House.
That's what he calls it. Mojo Dojo Casa House.
It's just very silly. He is hilarious from start to finish. That's all I really have to say about his performance. He did a great job. So, reviews. Out of 10, Andrew, what do you rate the Barbie movie?
I think it depends on why you're going to see it.
Okay.
If you're going to see it for an entertainment piece and just a cultural piece, and just because from my perspective, being a dude, I'd probably give it 6.5 to a 7.
6.5 to 7. All right.
It was really cool. I mean, if you're going to see it because it's like a rah feminist piece, I don't know that it really is that, because there's so many questions.
Yeah, I think if you're a feminist wanting a feminist supporting movie, you may not like this, but that's not our audience. If you're a feminist listening to our podcast, let us know why.
Keep listening. But I think if you're going for a fun, interesting art piece that's thought-provoking and kind of wild, it's probably a higher score.
Yeah. I think that might be true. Thomas?
It's at least a 7 out of 10. This is going to be a movie that's going to be a cult classic. This is going to be around, well, not even cult classic, it's going to be a classic. I think this popularity for this movie is just going to increase. It was well done. It's well acted. It's got a lot of good, memorable one-liners and stuff. We've already been trying to quote them. Yeah, this movie, what's going to be fascinating to me is, and I just kind of thought of this now, has it set itself up for a sequel? And I think maybe it has.
Yes. Greta Gerwig is on record saying she wants to make all sorts of Barbie movies. She wants Barbie movies to be made now.
So I think that this is definitely enjoyable, funny. The artwork is really well done. Like I said, it's kind of like a toy world. You see it.
If this doesn't win the Oscar for set design, I will be shocked.
Oh yeah, hands down.
It was definitely a 7 for me.
I think I'm actually going to maybe put it at 7.5. I thought it was very funny, and that counts for a lot for me from a movie I want entertainment from. It is also the thought piece, which I wasn't expecting. Everyone's ahead of the movies coming out. Everyone was talking about Barbieheimer, and I was like, that's silly. One's about a toy, one's about the atomic bomb. They're not going to be the same kind of movie. Oddly, they kind of are good matches. They're not about the same topics, but they are both thoughtful examinations of a seriously influential part of American life.
That's a great observation.
It is.
And one thing I will say about rating it is I wonder if this movie is a little bit too relevant to today, and in 10 years, some of the real world stuff might just be so dated that it hurts the movie. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see how the culture progresses, I guess.
I think that the hero's journey is generic enough that it will still be relatable in the future.
Yeah, I think probably. But I think some of the references will calling Barbie a fascist and that whole diatribe will probably seem quite dated, I hope, in a few years. So. All right, here's the question that we titled this. So the question is, Barbie, brilliant or brainless?
Brilliant.
Yeah, between those two, it is brilliant.
I gotta agree.
It obviously is a think piece, as we said. So I mean, and of course we were doing brilliant or brainless because it's Barbie.
Barbie, brilliant or brainless, which is harder to say than you might think.
Yeah. Regarding whether it was woke, I would have to say yes and no. I think there's definitely woke elements, but it's not entirely pushing a woke worldview.
Yeah, I think it's kind of woke by osmosis, where a lot of the people working on it were probably woke, and it's made in Hollywood, and that's just woke in general, in California, and just the culture is kind of woke. So I think that it just kind of gets in there, even though the messaging and I think the themes and I think what the movie is saying is important are not woke things. So is it woke? Is it not? I'm going to say it's not, but there's wokeness in it.
Yeah. There are some unexpected concessions that going into it, you feel, they're going to make this point, and it's just going to be this woke talking point. And then they examine the other side of it, and you're like, what? So I'd say it's both.
Yeah. Would you rewatch this movie? I'll answer that one first. I think, yes, I think it deserves a rewatch to really understand it. I will say, though, I'm probably going to wait until I can fast forward past the trans actor scenes, just because that bothered me a lot. It just bothered me a lot. I feel like pretending that the trans actor is a woman is a different kind of lie than the one we all agree to when we show up to the movie theater. We agree to a certain lie, and pretending that a man can be a woman is a different lie that I'm not comfortable with.
I would watch it again, most definitely. I think it's worth examining all of the themes and trying to further understand what the director was trying to say, and then thinking about how it applies to our culture today. And it's kind of just fun to watch, surprisingly.
Agreed.
Yeah, I would definitely watch it again, and I want to watch it again with my wife. She hasn't seen it yet, and I'm really curious for her kind of a take on it, because I do think this movie is, as we said earlier, kind of the target audience is women, adult women, and I'm just really curious to hear what her take would be.
Right. We didn't touch on the nostalgia factor at all, but if you know Barbie, there's all sorts of nostalgia in the different outfits, the different specific Barbies, and then, of course, I think the part maybe we understood the most was the weird Barbie, which is weird Barbie is what happens when you play with a regular Barbie too hard. You rip part of her hair out, you draw on her face, you mess up her legs so she's always doing the splits, and she becomes weird Barbie. And that was funny because I think that's probably most boys who played with Barbie made a weird Barbie.
Yeah, most definitely.
All right. So Barbie movie, brilliant or brainless? We say brilliant. That's been our opinions on Barbie. This has been the Pop Culture Contrarian podcast with Thomas, Sterling, and Andrew. We hope you will tune in next time.